is the Cultural Greenspace Task Force meeting for April 5th. And let's go ahead and get this meeting going. So last time we had some pretty good detailed discussion about some of the direction that the board wanted to go, or towards recommendations and suggestions to the board of city commissioners. So at this point, I think what I want to do is really kind of turn it over to the board members and let you guys continue the discussion if you have any questions. As we get into it, one thing I did want to pass out, and we have this pulled up there, I was able to swing by Cape Canaveral City Hall and just snap some photos of that, the paver area with the landscaping that they have, just for perspective.
And Walker, while you're handing those out, could I just suggest that we just make it official that we accept the minutes, make sure there's no changes?
That was one thing I knew I did wrong on this agenda.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
They just have to add my name.
Yep. Her name is just missing from those meeting minutes.
Okay. With that change, any other changes?
I'm actually missing from it.
Yeah.
So we need 2 names added.
2 names.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the.
You're not on the top. Gotcha.
Yeah, just on the
right,
top.
you're
I'm
not
commented
on
in there.
Any other changes? And I hope you don't mind.
No,
With that,
that's
we
quite
need
all
a
right.
second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Diane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You guys have it. Thank you. Jump right in there. All right. Just want to make it official.
So just to recap a couple of the things that we talked about, and then we'll just kind of open it up to discussion, was I think the board collectively was in agreement of relocating the Slater statue to the green space some way, shape, or form. I know we need to get the design firm a scaled figure of the Kelly Slater statue so they can play with it in their renderings. And then there was some discussion about protection of the statue from people and the environment. I know we had talked about potentially adding some shade trees to the perimeter. Another big one was permeable pavers and elevated rain gardens, and some kind of stormwater treatment that incorporated some native vegetation, maybe get IFAS involved, the University of Florida Agricultural Extension, to provide some input. We also touched on the I Dream of Jeannie statue. I have that in my notes. I don't know where we were going with that, but I know that was something that I have a star next to. And then ultimately, so Cape Canaveral City Hall, again, I provided some pictures. I can put them up on the screen for everyone. And other things, just to recap for everyone who is in here who was not in the previous meeting, the board, there was a resounding no in terms of whether or not the board would recommend artificial turf to, as something to use in the green space. And then also we briefly talked about a splash pad, and correct me if I'm wrong, if memory serves me correctly, there was discussion about that we're slim on real estate to begin with in the green space, and a splash pad would take up quite a bit of that. Right. So
not at that location in this instance.
Right. Okay.
And also, I think cost. You said that other places that have them tend to have them broken a lot, or
yeah, cost and maintenance and operations is pretty significant with those. So.
And we have a pool that has.
We have a pool with a splash pad that doesn't work a lot of times.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so with that, I would just open it up to the board to start bouncing around some ideas. I don't know if you want to start by going through these, or what do you think?
We can do that. We can do that. Maybe folks have already got ideas that want to jump in. I know one of the things, while I was traveling, I was looking around other communities, and even though I couldn't print them because I was just doing it on my phone, but I started looking around at plazas and piazzas in Europe and other places that I knew that had them. And one of the things I saw, and of course these aren't pervious pavers there because they're really old and it was pre-pervious, but I think we could probably still do it with pervious materials. And that would be not just a flat, not flat, but just a plain bunch of pavers, maybe some kind of a design. I know one of the things I thought kind of just being a beach town would be like a compass rose or something like that. And I think I just saw in here,
Yes,
it looks like it is
City Canal will have something very similar.
kind of like that on here. We don't have to necessarily duplicate their idea, but just something like that, make it a little more artsy with the pavers, some kind of a design instead of just all red or all brown or whatever.
I think that we should have the permeable pavers, and then we should have several areas with mosaics. We should have a large mosaic in the center, but we may want to have, like 4 other mosaics around the
Yeah.
courtyard.
That'd be a cool idea. I mean, I think that would look nice.
And then it wouldn't be too expensive, because there's all kinds of really neat stuff, but it's gonna be way too much money. But if
Right.
we could just have certain areas. But it's gonna take a while to decide what to do, I think.
Well,
And-
yeah, and ultimately, it's gonna be up to the commission, so we've gotta, if we're going to go that route, we should probably give them at least some design ideas, so that, it's like, you want this, or you want this, or you want this, instead of leaving it open-ended, and maybe help define that down, and if they wanna do that, I think it's a good idea, and I think so far, we've been fairly unanimous on our concepts, so if we can maybe fine-tune that, that's one thing, and not to get off track, but the other thing, I think, I wanted to kind of, I've been thinking about it the last meeting, and I'm looking at how Cape Canaveral did theirs with their gardens, and everything is at ground level. And I know at one point we were talking about possibly raised gardens around the perimeter, similar to what's down the end of Minutemen. So you can have your seating attached to the elevated. So you'd have something like a bricks or something this high with your very low garden, and then the big shade trees, and then attached to the wall are built-in seating. And doing that kind of maybe like 3 or 4 to each side that curves, so there's still entryways, but it's sort of separating that area from everything else. You can see in, but it's kind of separating it, so you get that, if we're gonna do it in that kind of peaceful retreat mode, we can still have events there with the stage and everything, but it's separated from the rest of the city a little bit with those dividers, or not. It's just an idea, and I was curious how y'all felt about that.
Well, it might be a little protective, as far as cars not running into the people.
Unfortunately, yes. That is a
Because you have
safety concern, yeah.
Bollards, aren't they called bollards?
I think last time we talked about, is there money in the budget for a landscape architect? And I think you were going to check and see whether a
Right.
landscape architect was associated with the project?
Yes, so they have not yet hired a landscape architect. That did come out. We had that discussion. Apparently, there's a reputable local landscape architect that they use a lot around here. Do you happen to remember the name?
I'm sorry.
What's that?
I do not remember.
Yeah, I can't remember who it is, but they use
The
them.
lady,
Yes,
Sue,
Oh,
Is it
yeah,
Hall?
yeah.
Sue
I
Hall.
believe that's who it is.
Yeah.
Yes, I think she did all of the corridors along the medians along 520 in Merritt Island.
Uh-huh.
I'm not quite sure what other highlighted projects she has, but apparently
Yeah.
she's a very reputable local.
Susan
landscape.
Hall, I think, yeah.
Yeah, Sue Hall.
Yeah,
She's
and-
great.
and easy to work with, and she'll take those, whatever ideas we have, and kind of run with them, and also, listen as she does the work, so it makes a
So
big
do we think that that's an option for this project?
I think it would save money if they.
When you say option, what do you mean by option?
Is it in the budget to have her on board?
So I have not looked at the budget in detail. I didn't see anything where there's a line item. I would be surprised if there wasn't a component of landscape architecture
Uh-huh.
that it comes into play here. But I don't know that answer for sure. I
And
would think yes, there would be, but I'm not 100%
I would
positive.
think it's important in this sense primarily, especially for the gardens, to make sure that, let's say we did elevate the garden, I'm not saying we have to, but if we did, you need somebody that's knowledgeable to make sure the root systems are gonna work, that they're not gonna rot, and it's not, it's done right, so there's room, et cetera, things that I don't know. I mean, I can garden, but not like that.
And that might be difficult for the big trees to have it like that, so she would.
Well, that's where somebody like that could come in and say,
She'd
oh,
know
yeah,
the
no
cost,
problem, or
too.
you can't do that.
Right.
So, and that's knowledge not only of what trees or what plants, but also our particular beach environment, it might work in the middle of the state, it might not work here in this sandy soil, salty soil and air. So that's why I think that's important to find out
She
what's
may be
feasible.
helpful
or
with
not.
the pavers too, because I know she does. It's not just plants. She does patios and,
Right.
And
all that.
design.
And then I was looking up the permeable pavers yesterday, so I know something. And then they do have ones that you can drive on, and I think it would be important because you are going to have food trucks and art, all kinds of trucks. You don't want to have them
You've
that,
gotta have
that
the
break.
stronger,
They need to
thicker.
be strong.
Yeah. Just not the ones down in my
McNabb?
Yeah, not those. I don't know if y'all are aware, but they put some down in McNabb, and they look great when they first put them down, but they were like falling apart and all haywire. So
Yeah.
we have to make sure we get good ones, the right
Well,
kind.
if we can key it in on the fact that it's garbage trucks driving through there, and that's the
There you
problem,
go.
that would
Yeah, okay, there you
solve
go.
90% of the problem, but yeah, we're still not sure.
So I guess, does it make sense to find out about the landscape architect before we go further? Maybe we decide roughly if we want elevated or not. If we do want elevated, I think we need to find out from that landscape architect if that's feasible or not.
I think we need, if we are gonna have a landscape architect, we should go ahead and have a landscape architect because they're gonna be helpful with
Yes.
all
With
Gonna veto stuff
everything.
that doesn't
with
work.
everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And, this is our opportunity to do it, and we one time. And so I say hire an expert. Give them guidance on what you'd like to use it for. Give them guidance on what you'd like to see and the feel, and then let them use their expertise. Tell them what the budget is, because we don't have that information either. But I think we're all pretty much in agreement that we want a piazza-type thing with some interest in its in the pavers, so it's not just one blank slate of pavers everywhere, and that we probably want raised beds to keep people out of them, and also to provide some seating under it with some shade. And we want to keep sight lines for the stage, so that when we have performances or bands or Friday Fest or whatever, we still have good sight lines for the people that are enjoying whatever's on the stage.
So the planters would be like a ground cover, more or less, at the right there, and then the trees up so you can see through them because you don't want big hedges
Yes,
blocking all the
that's
view.
what I envision, and we want to make sure that there's irrigation in there. And then also we want to make sure that what we're doing, there's enough money that the city has so that they can maintain whatever it is that we're doing, so it's pretty and stays pretty.
Something hardy that will last but look nice.
Yeah, and that's an issue, is maintenance. 'Cause, we know what's going on with the rain gardens, and, not trying to beat up on anybody, but, various contractors have been there and worked on it and changed and not worked and changed.
Yes.
It's an issue.
I think a lot of people don't realize.
With your, we got something to add, if we could. Tim and I are representing the review committee for the City Hall building, We've had substantial discussions about the entire property.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it would have an impact on what you're discussing. I'd like to share with you our thinking on
I think that's fine.
Great.
Yeah, yeah, I think that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
sweet.
it. Do you have this document here, or?
I do not, that's what I forgot to put on my jump drive.
We've got something similar, but it's maybe not updated.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what we're looking at now, Mike.
It was difficult for us to divorce ourselves from the whole
Yeah, no, I
property in
get
our
it.
discussions, and we've had 3 meetings.
Right.
We spent the first 2 discussing
This
the shape and location of the building and alternatives to that.
Right.
And then,
Is this,
yeah, so that's. what
this
that
is.
Yeah, that's
so
pre- that
that's
was it.
basically it. That's just the 3D version, right?
Yeah,
So we got the 2D version of your 3D version.
yeah, there you go, you
Yeah,
got it,
we've got
They,
exactly.
they just gave it to us.
One
Yeah.
that's,
There was considerable discussion about whether to leave the city hall in this location and this shape. We had lots of discussion about where it was, and there were pros and cons against it, but important thing is, we decided that it probably works best in the location where it's shown, and this shape works well for the parking that's going to be underneath.
Mike, can you just, so we're absolutely clear, what streets are where?
This is Minutemen.
This is Minutemen, and this is Orlando, and
Okay,
this
so
is
just like
Brevard.
this, okay.
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 The significant things is, we reacted very negatively to parking in this green space.
Right.
Yes.
And we found a way that we could park more cars underneath the building and do another row over here and not have this
Yay.
parking in.
Oh, yay.
Oh, that's
park
wonderful.
area.
Because we talked
Because
about
we were
that
not
last
happy
time
with
too.
that.
We didn't like that idea.
Yeah.
So that will actually expand the green space
It's gonna be much better.
substantially.
Okay.
The other thing is, we decided that we would like to see the stage, rather than being attached to the front of the building,
Yes.
relocated to another location,
Oh.
possibly over here.
In the corner
So
here,
back in the
facing-
corner, so it's facing-
this way.
But
Facing
just
this corner.
not attached to the city hall. It's
Okay.
really
That-
like in the way.
That
and
way
we
the
need
view
that
of the
attached.
stage is the entire area.
So this,
Right.
Here,
Okay.
you're putting
the
thing
stages
here.
can be in a
This-
standalone then?
Well, and with this
It'd be a
additional
standalone,
space,
exactly.
that makes sense to put
So
it
they're
back in
talking
that
about moving the
corner.
stage to
Yeah.
where the
Because
green,
then
this
you've
was
got-
a
Would it be
park
Well, a
this
lot of
right
discussions
here?
were, well, what is the noise? Is the noise going to migrate into the neighborhood?
Instead of the stage here, the stage would be here facing this way.
And actually, we sort of ended up as.
Like at an angle, like a baseball field.
Okay.
Proposal, but
Where this
we
would be
didn't
home
like it
plate.
attached to the
Well, you know,
building.
Looking straight
20-some years
Okay.
ago, we talked about putting it here just as a cost effective. But if this space is now part of the green space, it makes way more sense to put it there, as long as there's something behind it to deflect the sound out away from the neighborhoods.
Well, you would have it right there. If it was
Yeah.
right up to the building right here with the band shell facing this
Yeah,
way.
I think that's.
So in
correct.
this corner
So
over
that'd be
here?
facing,
in
I'd like to be
here.
in the southwest corner facing
Yeah,
northeast.
okay.
We good with that?
That was just our, obviously.
I
we're
love
gonna
it.
take this
It's,
to the
it's,
commission. We're
it's
gonna be
like
able to
right
see.
here,
Yeah.
correct?
But if we're all
But if-
unanimous, I
I
think
think so.
that's gonna make a difference.
There?
But you need to think about
I would
that.
leave that up to someone else.
Now
Yeah,
that that's been
okay.
brought to you. kinda
Yeah, I
like,
know,
you
because that
know,
changes the
It
perception.
might
of it.
change that.
Yeah.
And is this your second or third
Second.
meeting?
Second.
Second.
You talk about like a high level of what is it gonna be used for? I mean, you mentioned Friday Fest, the art show, of course.
I'd like to
and
see
other
them
events we
doing
can do.
yoga in the morning
Right.
there,
One-
or
one of
Tai
the-
Chi.
Yeah.
Something that, would bring people downtown in the morning so they could do something there.
One of the
Talk
things.
about power.
It was mentioned before, but we assume the city engineers are gonna figure out where to put the power and how to do that. Some of what we were talking about just now is this area along here, not all the way around, but in like little islands of raised landscape. So kind of like what's at the end of Minutemen. And power could certainly be in there and back here. And then it just depends on what the engineers decide to do. But I don't think you need power necessarily in the middle as much as around the periphery.
We also looked at some interesting lighting options that we could do in there if we needed it. We could either do something with hanging flower beds, pots, or we could do something artistic. And remember, last week, we saw a really interesting
I don't wanna take over.
lighting
No, no,
design.
That's
Yes, I
good
know,
stuff.
yeah.
That's good input.
On the magazine.
good to
you
know
showed.
that.
Yeah.
I think
So the entry to the
It's
city
Leslie,
hall
right?
is gonna be,
You should probably come
The
over here so we
entry
can kind of
into
fill you in on what they're
City
coming
Hall
up
Well,
with.
I think there'll be a colonnade along the front here, and it'll be in this way, because there's a stair and an elevator.
this
So,
is
to
gonna be
answer
over
your
here.
question, Tim, some of what we're
So
talking
here,
about-
let me show you what
road.
they're talking about doing. So
And you guys
here's the
jump
new
in and tell me
proposed
if
city
I'm right or
hall.
wrong on
Right.
any of
Here's
this.
Brevard.
But certainly.
There's Minuteman.
It would
There's
be
A1A South.
used,
What they're talking about
part
is
of
eliminating this over
Friday
here,
Fest.
incorporating this
but it
in your
wouldn't
green
become
space,
Friday Fest.
and then
We're thinking
moving
more of
this
a-
to where
kind
the
of
stage
a quiet,
faces
you know,
out in this
peaceful
direction,
little
similar to a
park-like
baseball field.
area.
Right.
So
That
that's
could also
what
be used
they
for
had talked
music,
about.
For
So-
yoga, for
and
Friday Fest
That's nice.
sometimes.
Yeah, and
You know,
so-
things like that, but just
and
a
now we're
Be
talking
nice.
a
about
low-key.
all the different
out of, you
potential
know,
uses of it.
And
Friday
that's one
Fest.
reason we
Well,
were talking
exactly.
about
Yoga in the park,
something
stuff like
right
that.
there, just kind of separated a little
Friday
bit,
Fest
so it's
when they're in the
not
art show,
just downtown.
what does it look like to you
It's
guys
separate
in your
from
minds
downtown
how
a
that's
little
gonna be
bit,
set
with-
up?
With
Right,
lots of
well,
access, though.
The devil's,
You know,
the
you
devil's in the
mentioned
details,
trees,
that's
big
where the
trees.
engineering design firms come in.
I like
Because we
that
can say,
idea,
hey, we need
Difficult.
power
those
to
trees are
this many vendors, we
Right.
as
need
far as.
Exactly.
to eliminate trip
We
hazards,
get it,
extension
but at the
cords.
same time.
Work your
cities
magic,
have
how do we do
trees.
this and keep the aesthetics
Cocoa
of
Beach
it?
can
So-
have trees,
Okay.
'cause I hear about
That's what I
leaves
figured
and
he
roots
was
and, oh,
saying.
they're dirty and.
So
I'm
just so
like,
you understand why, because
they're
everybody's up here huddled
wonderful.
around.
I
wanna
know.
make sure-
I kinda got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
No
They're
problem.
difficult, like an oak would take forever to even be helpful. I mean, I don't know how long a magnolia would take. I mean, they're green the whole time, but
That's where I think a good expert opinion on like something.
Yes, that's
why we-
Staying on the beach, give
person.
shade, maybe not be too much maintenance.
yes.
Help us.
Even the palms we have now?
I really don't like the idea of palms.
Yeah.
I hate
Because the
palms.
seeds-
I know we already have them
They just-
on the whole
they're just
perimeter,
Kinda like a-
but
like a baseball field.
If I can throw this out there too, I said this 10 years ago, when we did the whole, changed the streets, that if we don't maintain it, it's just gonna look the same way as it does
Well-
before we did anything. like
yeah.
And that's what,
Ocean Beach
And
Boulevard,
we've got to have
money
it
for
in the budget.
landscaping. It looks like a
That's gotta be-
disaster, just
we
like
need to
Minute Maid Causeway.
mention
I
that to the
agree
It's a
on that.
disaster, and
Gotta
nobody,
add something in there.
works,
that
maintains it.
applies to.
That's not acceptable. for
Everything.
you know,
Look at the
especially those two
sidewalk
streets.
in front of the Tidy Turtle.
520 the
I
pier,
mean,
make
come
them.
on, it's disgusting.
Yeah,
And it's
I
got
agree.
nothing to do with what's planted there, it's just filthy, dirty, nobody ever cleans it. I mean, there's.
Or
gotta
the
be-
decorative pots with plants in them all along the road. They're dead or there's trash in them. I clean them all the time, so I understand what you're saying.
No, thank you very much. I
No, thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you very much.
No, that's wonderful. That's not gonna be,
Something that you're going a direction where we've already talked about it, we'll say what we talked about, not redirecting you, but just giving that.
well, it's nice to know that's not gonna be parking in there.
Good input.
Everybody,
And,
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for
shared
that.
Do you
very.
still have the lighting that you showed us
Thank you.
last week? That-
Yeah, that's cool.
That creates
I-
more space for the statue
Yeah.
too, to not be
Let's
taking
show-
up so
I don't
much
think-
either.
But you know, still need more shading over the top.
Yes.
Because it's,
I saw that, somebody sent that to us, I think.
Yeah, I sent it to
Do
you
whatever
because
design you guys
we
want.
looked
Which
at
would
it
be
at
more
the
shade
last
versus
meeting.
that.
I think this is awesome.
Yeah, I think, I
Or
mean,
something like
Because it also
that.
has
Yeah.
electric in it,
yep.
Yeah,
and lighting, seating.
and seating.
And then you can, if you get someone local that could build it, you could build something other than, this is an
Right.
example, flowers that would have more shading, so it's kind of. And then if you really want to get innovative, you could put misters in there. I'm just-
Yeah.
Step one to a splash
think-
pad.
Excuse me, I think things like that could be
Something-
incorporated
If we
in
could
something
combine
like
it
this.
with,
RDS, Rock Ridge Design Studio, you know, that made the astronaut thing the statue I
Yep.
gave.
Yep, and I had an asterisk next to their name too, and I couldn't remember what we were talking about.
Yeah, that's what it was. I have a little issue with the I Dream of Jeannie statue. I just, you know, it just, is it really Cocoa Beach to me? That it seems like if you're gonna do I Dream of Jeannie, maybe she should be out at I Dream of Jeannie Lane. That if they were saying that there needs to be a statue regarding a woman, you know, it should be a woman like that Hidden Figures that did the math out at the Space Center. I mean, it should be that kind of
Yep.
more, I don't know.
Sally Ride.
Yes, Sally
that type
Ride,
of
you know,
Well,
because we aren't just some other community, we're the space community.
Right.
And we've got Kelly Slater, and I mean, I did get the astronaut surfer, But our
I think
space.
something to consider, again, even though we've got some additional space, and I know we're the cultural green space, but there's a limitation on how much stuff you can put in there. If we're putting, and as well as, and I know, I know you two, I'm not sure, I assume, that we're here because we kind of know and understand art a little bit, which is always a matter of taste, but if you're going to have like those light
Space, and I know we're
fixtures
the
that you showed,
Cultural green space.
does that go with
There's a limitation.
this
on how much
statue
stuff
or
we
that
put in.
statue? I mean, you can have,
If we're
all of a sudden,
putting,
the
as
old
well
art
as,
saying it's not done till it's
I know
overdone.
you two-
Right.
When it's overdone, it's overdone, and it's
Yeah.
too late. So we might want to just, and I'm not saying anything against doing a female statue, just where do we
You
put
can
them
always
and
do
how
it
do we
some
do
other
it?
time.
What's that?
You don't have to do that now
Yeah,
anyway.
Right.
Sometimes, well, I understand what you're saying with the less is more,
Yeah.
with what I do, what I run for, people come in with 27 ideas, and we always try to get them to hone down on the main thing that they're trying to get,
Yeah.
because the picture's worth 1,000 words versus
Exactly.
all the things, so I understand what you're
But
saying,
you
like,
have-
if we do pretty lights, it could be a lot.
You would have three things, because you'd have the Sid Later, you'd have the astronaut, and then you might have these table canopy things. It's sort of three things already.
And we want to design in the pavers or some interest in the pavers. So
Right.
I
and-
think let's
We
limit
don't need
ourselves to
another-
Kelly and then see what else. And then let's come up with the design for the
Maybe the lights and
flooring.
stuff and the flooring can all be the same theme, whether it's space themed or ocean themed, whatever.
Yes.
Because Kelly obviously is gonna most likely, or that's what we're talking about putting there. But like you're saying, like have the other two tie together so we don't have like 3 or 4 different things going on and
Yes.
ideas. in
And
one
we
space.
maintain a
And
theme.
one thought is, and I brought up, the compass rose, but maybe another thing to consider is, muted tones, but just in nice soft waves. If we're, thinking about Kelly Slater and the surf community, just, instead of, all the squares like this.
Like have it
they
in the
can be-
patterns.
They can be done in very gentle, long patterns with muted, so it's not like boom in your
I
face.
think we have to figure out what we're gonna do here, before, and then we can decide what we need to do in the
Right.
pavers.
Because you might want to tone the
Because
papers
if
down.
this is this,
Like that.
yeah, you're not gonna wanna have
I agree.
major
Yeah.
stuff going on. You might have some, but much more simple.
Yeah.
We kind of need some guidance too about how much lighting do you want in that space for safety and for aesthetics,
Right.
and figure out what that lighting is. Is it, is it something like this, or is it down in the pavers, or is it on light post with baskets? I don't know.
And looking at cost of those various different
Yes,
things too.
Well, if you put the lighting in this and not in baskets, it's one less thing to maintain, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking also, because that doesn't make a mess either if everybody's concerned about, I still think we need green stuff in there too,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be rows of trees. It can be,
I'm assuming they're leaving those palms that are lining, they said the oak's staying, so the palms are probably staying on the perimeter. And so everything's, I would assume, being built around the palms that are already there.
that's
So
what I
there's
would
already gonna be
assume.
palms.
Yes.
So whatever green that goes in there too. But you're right, not too crazy maintenance, but still aesthetically pleasing. And I'm kind of like you, like I like trees. Like I don't think that leaves are a mess necessarily. Obviously you don't want like a tree that drops it constantly. That's a lot. But I think it is nice when you go into cities and there's flowers in their garden beds and their trees are beautiful, colorful trees. And I know that the prettier they are, sometimes the messier they are. But like I personally think that that's nice. I think people look for that. I know when people come into our business, they like get the flowers of Florida tattooed on them. Like people do that, like hibiscus and like I don't even know if that's a Florida true flower as I say it, but or plumerias. People see them around town. I definitely would love to see. No, plumerias are messy, but
Because they have no leaves.
no, I know. They lose all their leaves. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is the aesthetic of that, like people enjoy not just a palm tree. So if we can find an appropriate stuff to go in there.
And to take into what, like Tim's saying, I agree that if you go with it, and while it's an an expense, especially it's a little more difficult that it's going to survive, but bringing a more mature trees in initially than just putting saplings in and waiting 10 or 15 years to see them actually get to where they're supposed to be or where they want them to be. So I think as you do that, we can look at that. I'm drawing a blank. I know what they are. I've grown up with them, but the trees we got downtown, the gray.
Oh, the buttonwoods.
Buttonwoods,
Yep.
yeah, the silver buttonwoods. They can get actually pretty big.
They're pretty good.
They don't shed. They don't drop leaves that much. They're low maintenance, but you got to bring them in mature because otherwise they're not. And you got to make sure that whoever's trimming them knows how to trim them properly, whether it's hedges or trees. I mean, it drives me nuts because I see even our city, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say this publicly, so maybe somebody will listen because I've said it 100 times. On the hedges, don't trim them this way. Trim them this way because then the bottom will stay green instead of the bottom dying, and you got this big weird thing going. Trim them the right way, and it makes a difference. And I'm not an expert. I just know that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess we'd also need to know what the budget is for maintenance of the vegetation every year.
Yep.
It's gotta be amount that is paid, and then you can determine
Problem
what you can
is,
put in.
the problem is the commission sets their budget. It's not like a 20-year budget. It's a budget every year that they review, and they set aside certain things. So sometimes the money doesn't get to where we think it ought to go for the maintenance. And I'm trying to remember, it was 20-some years ago when I was on the commission, I remember, I think it was Chuck Billius was telling me at that time, every palm tree you plant is $45 a year in maintenance. That was 20 years ago. So it's probably 100 now. That's trimming, getting them started with fertilizer and water till they get mature, all of that. And that's what they have to consider. So that's just palm trees. So then you got to take everything else and think about that maintenance. And some of that's weeding, trimming, all the above. So
They do have some products that help with new plants. They're called Steady Spring, and they're actually are filled with diaper material. So you water, you water them, and then that stays for 30 days. So, which is really, really helpful.
use that when we're
It's
planting seeds.
inside.
Seeds, yep.
It's inside, like a donut.
Yep.
Right.
I've seen that where they will take, anytime I've seen beach nourishment projects where they're planting sea oats, and I'm assuming when
You put them down in the hole, that same material
Yeah.
you're talking
it's
about.
like the little jelly, little
But these
clear
are,
jelly things.
they also keep the weeds out because it's like a big diaper that goes around it and just full. So they're very helpful. We use them up at our tree farm in North Florida. So things are living.
Would it make sense, I mean, once we kind of come up with the rough design, which I think we're really close, would it make sense at our next meeting to ask the landscape architect to come and maybe
That way we
bounce
can
some of these
know what works
ideas
and
off
doesn't,
and
yeah.
find out what works and what doesn't, so we can
And what the
finalize
cost
what we
is.
propose?
I will need to talk to see if the landscape architect is under contract and available for that.
Okay.
Because if the consulting firm who is currently handling the design of City Hall and ultimately the Greenspace has not selected a landscape architect to be under contract yet, I'm not quite sure.
Come on, Tim, you gotta get this stuff going, man.
I'm not quite sure where that comes in
Okay.
in the process. It would make sense because we're doing a cultural green
Right.
space task force to have that at this point, to have an
Well,
expert.
to have so we're not just saying, hey, we want to put these trees in there, but actually have pinpointed the appropriate ones for
Right.
it.
Right.
Because I don't personally know all the appropriate ones, but I know the idea of what we're trying to.
Or what the other options are for shade that.
There might be something that none of
aren't
us are even
trees,
thinking about, yeah, or something that we're not thinking about that's,
That aren't trees,
So-
that, you
so-
know,
So would it
easy
be
to
okay
maintain.
for us to talk to RDS regarding something, you know, along this line?
Do you see any issue with that?
I think if you're just asking somebody for information to bring, as a resource to bring back here, I don't see any problem with that. There's no money being exchanged, you're not talking to any of us until you come here and talk publicly with
Because
us.
that's gonna impact what we do as
Yeah.
far as land.
Are we actually a
architect.
sunshine? I'm not sure that we are because we don't have any power. I mean, we're not, we
Yeah.
don't, what we vote on does not matter. We're just
I
advisory.
think, I was told on like the electric bikes that we are in fact under sunshine because
Yes.
it's a public meeting.
That is correct.
So
Even
we
though
can't.
we don't have any power to make any decision whatsoever.
We can vote on things even though it's not the final decision. We are in fact voting on some things.
Is that what the city attorney is telling you?
It's the city's position on the task force. They're handling them very similar to any appointed boards. They just, to make sure that everything stays straight, we're just gonna handle everything like we would either Board of County Commissioners or an appointed board. So that is the direction we're going with.
Most of the advisory boards are still under sunshine. I know,
Yes.
like even at the
Yep.
county, Community Development Block Grant, I'm on here, TPO.
Even though we're just advisory and we have zero power.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not a
So then we
lawyer, but that's what I-
collectively cannot meet with the architect without it being a public meeting or a landscape architect.
Individually you could, but not collectively.
Individually, we'd have to each make our own appointment.
That's correct.
Right. And then you could bring that information back here, or if we agreed, that resource could give us a 5-minute explanation or whatever. Or we could have them here to ask questions like we're talking about the landscape architect.
Okay.
Let me go back to Wayne, the project manager on the City Hall project, and see where we're at in the contract with the design consultant and pick his brain about landscape architect. I'm not sure we will be able to get someone to come to this meeting that is with the design firm. My gut reaction is that they probably won't at this point. But I will check and see if we can do that.
I think the main thing we're looking for is just somebody that could give us information about various plants and where we could plant them or not plant them.
Yeah, I
And how
think
they
we
work.
really need an expert to help us with this.
Okay.
So we're like done on the 18th?
Yes.
That's difficult.
Yes. Yep. Very much
Very
understand.
difficult.
I mean, we've got a
So
lot
what
of the
happens-
basics.
So what happens on the 18th that cuts it?
So what will happen on the 18th is the Cultural Greenspace Task Force will have a collective meeting with the City Hall Task Force. We will talk about our two ideas, maybe argue about recommendations, come up with collective bullet point recommendations that will ultimately be taken to the board. I don't know what the exact date is. Tim, do you know what the date is that it's supposed to go to the
I know
board?
that we were told to have, we had our last meeting, this past week,
Okay.
the third, was our last
It
Monday.
must be the first meeting in May. I mean, because if they're doing it on the 18th, there's 2 weeks to get, well, unless they're doing the 20th.
No,
I wouldn't be going that
No,
soon.
it wouldn't make it.
I think Karen has an idea of when that is.
Okay.
Okay.
So she knew that we were coming together, so.
Yep.
I'm assuming she does, but we had to have Wayne wanted us to have our meeting group done by this week.
Okay.
Okay.
That's why I was surprised to listen to you that you're gonna have another meeting probably next week.
And Walker, you mind if I ask Tim another question?
No, go ahead.
Tim, who all is on your committee?
John Lose, Mike Miller, Rick Anderson,
Oh, okay.
and Bill Vollmer joined us in our last meeting.
Okay, on the
We
committee?
didn't have much input because he came in.
Right.
Just as our third meeting and we just kind of got up to speed. He had a
Okay,
couple comments,
but he's officially on it.
Again, it was.
Okay.
So what exactly is it that you're wanting our committee to accomplish by the 16th?
So our committee, which I think we're pretty close, I think we're starting to delve into the details of a lot of this stuff, is what recommendations we have that we want to be taken to the board as
Okay.
this task force. I'm seeing, you know, the permeable pavers with mosaics, you know, some.
And can I
Yeah.
just stop you there,
Yeah.
because I apologize, I keep forgetting. I know we talked a little bit last time, but hold that thought.
Go ahead.
But on the permeable pavers, are we trying to look at, just like what we did on Minutemen, to actually get the piping and the gravel and all that, so it can actually be a recovery?
From the stormwater utility manager, of course. Yeah, that's great. No, I mean, we are not tasked to do that.
I know that's a huge expense, but boy, wouldn't that be good? Because I'm looking at this property, and I know we were talking at the last meeting, and there wasn't really much stormwater capture, right? So this could be it.
And this could be it. These design consultants are pretty savvy at figuring out ways to do underground exfiltration, storage. Maybe I would, as an engineer, where they're at, I expect that they would likely have something in the back of their mind for the Greenspace for stormwater storage.
Okay.
Not necessarily that it's set in stone with those guys. They can work a lot of magic to
All right.
store stormwater elsewhere. And on that note, I spoke to the city of Cape Canaveral. They do not have storage underneath those pavers there. Now, they have a lot of their parking lots all around, like in front of their city hall and another parking lot they're getting ready to build. That all has underground storage and exfiltration.
Could we just recommend that, you know, that part of the concept of the permeable pavers is for, you know, stormwater capture, and if, in their engineering and planning, if, you know, certainly we'd be happy any additional stormwater capture under these permeable pavers would be fine. I don't think that affects the actual design, other than they need to be permeable or not permeable.
Yep.
So just a thought. I apologize for
No
interrupt,
problem.
but
No problem at all.
environmentally, I think we're all on the same page.
But
So go ahead.
yeah, but going back to, so some pavers with some potentially multiple mosaic layouts, beds with shade trees, raised, not raised, still kind of up in the air. Also, native vegetation, robust native vegetation. Maybe robust isn't the best one. What word am I looking for?
Well,
Hardy?
Before we move on, could
Yep.
we, you know, maybe, I think it would be helpful if, do we think we want ground level, or do we want raised beds? Any preferences?
I think we need to have the landscape architect so that we know if it's gonna kill the trees if you
Okay,
have it
good.
raised.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, I know we talked about native, I want something pretty. So
Right.
native
Hardy.
isn't,
Hardy.
Non-invasive.
native isn't that important to me as long as it's pretty and easy to maintain and does well in our environment.
Right,
Yes.
right. So if they are raised, we want something low. If they're not raised, they could be hedges, flowers, anything, you know, a couple of feet. Basically, we want sight between whatever the canopy is and
Still want to
that.
be able to see staging from wherever.
Right.
Right.
Yes, and we don't want them to be used as garbage cans if they are raised, because that's an issue that we have with the pots.
yes.
They become big garbage cans that aren't maintained.
Or lowered, because on
And then-
Minutemen, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah, and then the low ones, people are walking through them and trampling them. So we have to, think about what we can put and where and what height it should be so that it's able to be maintained but not trampled.
We talked last week about the putting, and I don't know if it's still the idea, when we were looking at the design up on the screen last week where the Cocoa Beach, it was like the corner
Yes.
property. We talked about maybe putting Kelly Slater there, but then there was concern of traffic, if he would be protected or not. But was
Right.
that still an idea to have him kind of be like the center? Because then he would line up directly now with the new layout with the stage, it sounds like, now that they've made it diagonal. If
Right
this
now, the
is
stage is gonna
Slide
be
that
there.
they
Yeah.
had where they showed
Right
the
here.
green
Yes.
space.
was on that.
Right on the corner.
They would be diagonal to each other now.
I think that corner would be the
Here,
perfect
right
spot.
here.
It would be a nice
Yeah.
welcoming, especially with the stage moved, honestly. I think it would actually be more
Well,
appealing.
Tim was.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things that was talked about quite a bit was the safety and security of the street along Orlando. And I like the idea of having raised almost like a wall, not tall, but something that stops groups of people from just walking out toward that road.
Yes.
You know, to where it's a sidewalk on one side, and then we've got a green space and whatever in the other. So I think you're going the right direction there, but we're, like I said, we talked of it from a safety aspect. And I heard someone early in this meeting talk about bollards or something along there, but that would take the place of that.
Right.
If you had those,
Could I-
something
I
like
was,
that.
I was meaning it was be like a bollard,
Oh,
not
yeah.
a bollard, but it would suffice
It
like
could
a
be structured
bollard.
in such a way that it would be also.
Yes.
I mean, you
Yes.
would want to have it
It would be
so it
protected.
would stop a car from coming.
Yes.
So there's,
yeah.
so those raised beds, if we went that, I always use the end of Minutemen, just as an example, but they would look, I think, better than that if we did that, but similar. But also, if we didn't do that, if we had a landscape architect saying, you know what, it's really better to plant these things at ground level. If you look at these, what they did was, there's a short wall, and we could incorporate those walls where they, one, protect traffic, kind of separate the space, but also work as seating. So there's another option, which follows suit with what you're, like that, which follows suits with that. So that could be seating, it could be protection, and it could be separation as
It
well.
would direct people honestly more to that light to cross when they go to the parking garage
Yes.
versus them just running out in the middle, which I know is a problem everywhere.
And the only thing I would suggest, just an idea, and thinking something a little different, a little more artsy, is just have them curved. They not all just like that, not like all crazy, but just gentle curves along there to kind of break it up and make it a little more natural, especially if it's going to be next to the landscaping.
And that's where our shade potentially could be too. So
Yes.
having the seating under that makes sense.
Right.
A place where people can kind of get out of because I feel like even if we add these shades that we're talking, we're still going to have a lot of open space with a lot of direct sun. And having that kind of built-in seating and a little bit of shading for the aesthetic look and functionality makes sense to me.
Right.
as
That way you
well.
got both. You got
Yeah.
open space and you got some nice kind of park-like seating and space. 'Cause that's what I'm kind of getting my head a little bit, that kind of combination of a plaza and a park combined.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we have plenty of seating in there where you can sit and enjoy and it's shaded.
Yeah. Sit and eat lunch, read a book, talk to a friend.
So let me look in to see if I can get a reputable landscape architect in this area that would be willing to come talk to us next week. Maybe give us a quick rundown and do a Q&A with him. See if that's
Yeah, I
something
think that'd
viable.
be helpful. And then if one of you want to reach out to somebody doing the lighting or whatever and bring that information back or bring them back and give them 5,
yes.
10 minutes to talk.
Do we know the dimensions of this green space that we're talking about now?
One of these has dimensions on it.
Oh, good.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So the proposed building from, that one. That's the same design, right? That proposed building, what did Mike leave you, the other one?
Oh, that oblique? No.
No.
Oh,
Do not have
The
that.
3D one? No. Mike, you got that 3D one?
Yeah.
These are the same, these are just 2D, it's the same thing though, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do the breakdown, it's pretty good.
Can we get that?
Yes.
And have that sent to us?
I meant to put that on my jump drive. I did not make it to my jump drive before I came over here today. I'll be sure to make sure we have printouts of all of this.
this looks better than what it looks like in real life.
So, this is the 3D version of it, right? So that's the basic building. What we're talking about, it's almost like it's the same size as the green space, like it's 2 squares, right?
Right.
So these small squares are 15 feet by 15 feet. So this building's 135 feet. So I'm assuming this is probably really close to 135 feet here, as well as this way as well, because we're talking about taking this out.
Yep.
So that's about 18,000 square feet, something like that.
So about 135 on each side,
Yeah.
roughly?
Yeah.
Okay.
This place is about 16,000 square feet.
Okay.
And I know I'm kind of getting off track here a little bit, but what's going to happen there? Do we know? You're going to put like palm trees, something?
So
That's a fire station.
they are going to need to maintain, and I'm looking at Mike.
I'm asking about the fire station.
Mike and Tim.
Driveway.
If we're eliminating the green pervious parking area, is that where they're shifting the parking for the fire station down to the west a little bit on that, I guess it would be the south side of the newly proposed city hall?
Yeah, we'll pick up some other outside parking south of the city hall.
Yeah, so, yeah, what Tim was asking about, so here we got fire station, we've got Orlando, this little run through here, if this is gone, so is that more parking gonna be pushed over here to that south side of the new city hall?
To get all the cars out of the green space.
Okay.
Okay.
In fact, one of the reasons we stayed with the location we have is ultimately we may go ahead with the parking, but there may not be an appetite for spending that money now, but sometime down the line, we hope there will be, and then we can get all the parking out of it.
Okay.
Okay.
So my question was, and for everybody is, so if this is gone, this is all gonna become green space now. My question is the fire station right here, you got this big, 40-foot tall building. We need to consider some kind of landscaping along there, something to just not have that big building right there. If you're in this nice cool spot here and enjoying it and not have this, just, no offense, big ugly building stand there with that, maybe some big palm trees and various landscaping up and down, something to kind of cover that in some way or another, or do something with it. So just an idea as we're
And then
moving
the
forward.
band shell is going, or whatever we're calling that stage, is going to be over there as well.
It looks like it's going to be, if I'm correct, right in that corner, sort of facing to the corner of Orlando and Minutemen, which is kind of what we're talking about. So actually, it's got some nice balance. If you have the stage there facing that corner, you can put Kelly in that corner,
Yeah, I think-
have some nice little island-like landscaping along the outer edge, and then it actually gives us, instead of a square, it gives us, a square, but we're working on an angle, which I think is way better to work with. Design-wise, it gives you so many more things you could do with it. We were talking about, maybe if you did the pavers in waves, you could have them going from the band shell going out in like a radius almost, or there's a, ton of things you could do with that. Actually, way better. We're gonna have public comment, as soon as we get done. 5 minutes?
Yes,
5 minutes to be done, or 5 minutes to public comment?
5 minutes to be done. We have another meeting, there's another meeting after
Oh,
this.
so we probably need to wrap it up.
Okay.
I wanna
Want to do
close it up, sorry.
public comments?
So let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. Mr. Dillon.
I'm John Dillon, Dillon's more information for you all. I've been in the engineering field for about 33 years, safety engineer for about 13 years. My safety engineer, my responsibility was to review every design package from top to bottom, which is civil, structural, electrical, everything, the whole package of design. I've talked to 8 different engineers and 1 city commissioner, and they agree with my comments on this. That's the original one. Let me put there. There's an improvement right there. By doing that, then you read my comments on the back below that, and you see the difference with that. See the comparison. The committee's already decided they want to put the city hall back behind it, but I think Kim was trying to understand what I said before about the safety with the front of A1A. The problem there is still, when I was a kid, and I think kids are still that way, kids get to play, they run between bushes. Sooner or later, some kid's gonna run through that bush, chase another kid across the sidewalk onto the road. City of Cocoa Beach does not need that. Safety is mission number 1, period, nothing. If you read my comments there, if you scan through them real quick, it shows I'm gonna just let you just read the scan real quick of what I'm showing there with it. When you come to my floor plan layout, I get an extra 675 feet, which they don't really care about that. They made a decision that. But if you go back to the Greenspace, it shows about a little over 15,000 square feet. Mine comes out with about a little over 30,000, which is about almost 2 times larger, the Greenspace, than what's on this design package is. When you go back and look into going down other different lines, the stage will be on the southwest corner facing the northeast direction. So the sound will be going north. It'll be a little bit of reflection off the building. But remember that building is hollow underneath, so you get a parking space in it because of the building code requirements on that for flood. Come on, look at other things. Also, we talk about the grass. I explained that to them about the very last part. You can read that later, simple as that. Also, with the parking spaces, I think they required a minimum 32 square feet, parking spaces. So they've got 35 showing on the drawing package with 6 by the fire department area. By my layout on the floor plan, I can put 22 parking spaces in under the building. Depending on what the structural columns are laid out, you can add more of those. You got 15 parking spaces of Permian bricks on the west side of the building, and 3 of them beside the fire department area. So again, you can come up with more parking spaces than what is just more than what their requirement shows on this design package. Y'all have any kind of questions or anything?
Nope. No, I appreciate you taking the time to look at this in detail.
The main thing is to make it something, and the safety. Again, when you get to larger, you're almost double the space that's one benefit that y'all would be thinking about that, seriously with that.
Okay.
All right.
Say one commissioner agrees with all my comments, period, so far. So y'all think about that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Could I just, if I could, and I know we got time limit, but just for the building group, that's kind of falling on you guys more than us, but I think wherever it goes, what we've been talking about in design could work in either corner. So whatever y'all end up with, personally, I'd prefer to see it as we're looking at it, as we've been looking at it, location-wise. I think we can still do it very safe, but that's my personal opinion. But either way, our design, I think, is still going to work, whether it's in the front or in the back.
But you can enlarge it.
So,
Okay. Okay, so do we have anything else? Are we good?
move to adjourn.
All right. This meeting is adjourned.